Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Amina Blazy, and I'm here to just talk to you a little bit about becoming a principal or a site leader, an assistant principal, and just give you some insight on how you can do that, and then maybe ask you a few questions. So, I decided that I would have this conversation because I think there sometimes is the idea of becoming a site leader is easy, or I really want to do this because it's glamorous. You have this title, but there's more to becoming a principal. So think about why educational leadership? What motivates you, or why are you motivated to become a site leader or principal? And who do you think you're going to serve when you become a principal? And what is your personal growth currently as a teacher, currently as a coordinator, maybe a teacher on special assignment? What do you do for your own professional growth? Because that is something you will always need to think about as a leader and currently as a teacher, because you always should be growing. So, my story. I actually am a former science teacher. I'm a former middle school science teacher. I started out in Illinois in a district, and then I moved on to Ohio, where I subbed most of the time because my kids were little. And then I moved to California, where I was a science teacher in the Palm Springs Unified School District. And I did that for quite some time. I don't want to out my age, but I did that for a while, and I really, really enjoyed doing it. And what I started to realize is that other teachers and even assistant principals and principals were coming to me asking me how and why my students were succeeding. And I actually taught in an area of Palm Springs that was economically disadvantaged. However, the students that I served were academically for science, because the grade that I taught, they actually were tested. And most of the time, majority of my students were proficient or above proficient. And there were some years where 85% of them were proficient. I wish that I could have done more, but that doesn't always work that way. So really think about how and why you're becoming a principal. And my story I became a principal because I wanted to help others. I realized just as a teacher, I wasn't just available for others to be, to help them be better teachers, but I started to think, if I was a site leader or a teacher on special assignment, I could affect more teachers and really help them be effective in the classroom. So that's really where I decided or when I decided I wanted to be a principal. I also realized that I wanted to inspire people to do great things in the classroom. And then I had that opportunity. So becoming a site leader. Why educational leadership? Think about this. Do you want to be a leader because you're going to be the boss? Or do you want to be a leader because you want to influence change? Because there are differences as to why you should be a leader. So just think about that for a moment, because not everybody goes into leadership for the same reasons, or maybe even a good reason. So I asked those questions because here's some little demographics first. There are about 930,000 schools in the United States. So 130,930. Elementary schools, about 87,000. Secondary schools, just under 27,000 schools in the United States. And these are public schools, by the way. Actually, all schools. And then combined schools, 15,000, just under 16,000. Then other schools. And those other schools, could be maybe a kinder, first and second grade school. They could be schools that only are in a rural area that actually start from preschool and up. So combined schools could be K-8 or 7-12 schools, and then other schools could possibly be a K-12 system. So students in America, there are over 50 million students that are attending school in the United States. And in the suburban areas, that makes up about 40% of the public schools. And then city area would be about 30%. And then rural areas about 19%. And then town or urban areas, about 11% of students. However, this is something you might want to know if you're going to be a principal, that of all of the schools in the United States, the population of students that are white is about 47%, Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, 27%, Black students, 15%, Asian students, 5.3%, two or more race students, 4.1%, and then our indigenous population, 1%, and then our Pacific Islander students is about 0.4%. So these are some great statistics. So the number of public school principals in the United States. Now, as some of you know, right now it is 2021. Well, as I'm recording this, it's December 2021, and a lot of people are retiring. It could have been because they were at retirement age. The pandemic may have shifted some of their ideas around what they wanted to do with their life. So these data that you are seeing, even the data previously, are from the National Center of Educational Statistics. And it's around the time of 2017-18. So of all principals, like 100%, this is just under 50% represent male, just over 50% represent female principals. Now, these are principals. And then of that, over 75% are white. And then at about, let's see, it's just below, it's around 11% of the population of principals is about are Black. And then it's less than that for Hispanic, Latinx, Latino. Our Asian principals, 1%, indigenous 1%, and two or more races 1%. Pacific Islander is actually less than 1%. So something to think about as you become a principal, how you can make change. Maybe you are of the BIPOC community, Black, indigenous, people of color community, and you want to infuse yourself so that you can, so students that look like you will see you in a leadership position, which is always a wonderful thing. Okay, so let me go back. So what is your motivation? What's your motivation? Because my motivation was to inspire and to help influence teachers to be the best they could in the classroom and allow them to be the expert in their classroom. I didn't want them to teach like me. I wanted them to teach the way they would teach, and then to infuse what that learning looked like in the classroom from the student's perspective and from the teacher's perspective. So you have to decide, why do you want to be a principal? Why do you want to go into this leadership role? Because if you think it's just to manage schools, it is not. That's a component, but it's not just to manage schools. So who will you serve as a leader in education? Teachers and support staff. You will serve students. You will also serve families and the community. If you're going in to think you are just serving teachers, that is a myth. You are servicing all community partners. And that is something that you will have to work through and grow professionally, because the way you are with teachers and support staff, the way you are with students, the way you are with the community and families will be different. And you will need to be able to balance that. But I promise you it's worth it. It's fun. So where do you start? So if you're a teacher, you actually can ask your principal to work as what we call a principal designee. You don't have to have the credential yet. They can allow you, say, for example, if I had a district meeting or if I was at a conference, I could pay for a sub for the teacher to go to be pulled out of the classroom, and they would have the opportunity to experience what it's like to be a principal. And that gives them practice. So as a principal, I always wanted that. One, it gave me time to maybe have a day where I had to take my daughter to school, or I had to go to a parent-teacher conference, or my sons, 2 daughters, 2 sons, or maybe I was at a conference. So you can give, as a principal, I was able to give this experience, but you have the right to ask. Did you know that? You can ask for this experience. So ask. Now, administrator's credential. You do need them. If you don't, that might be a private school, but typically you need to have an administrator's credential. And in many states, you would have had to have taught for 3 years. Don't hold me to that, but typically it's at least 3 years. And you can get a credential in some states by just going to the credential courses, or you can actually add that on as a master's degree. So it just depends on what you want to do. And then always continue your own professional growth as a teacher and as a principal, because things change and you don't want to be that principal that gets stuck in the past and things are moving so quickly you can't keep up. And I think that's what happened to a lot of people during the pandemic. So just, we would love to have you as a principal if you're a teacher, and if you're an assistant principal, there is room for you too. So think, what are your relationships like as a teacher? Do you get along with people? Do you work well with others? Do you share ideas, or are you the one who's always right? How are you working collaboratively? Do you work with your principal, your assistant principals, the support staff? Do you thank the custodian for cleaning up that biohazard? We'll just call it biohazard, but we know it's, let's just say it, throw up. Do you work with the office staff? Do you work well with them? Because your site secretary, and I'd rather use administrative assistant, but typically it's secretary, clerks, your site nurse, your instructional support, maybe a paraprofessional or instructional aide, maybe yard duty or proctors. How do you work with them? Like, you treat them the way they should be treated, meaning with respect. Are you humble? And what would others say about you? Because if they would say things about you behind your back that's probably not very good, you may need to turn and decide how you want to be. Because as a principal, you want people to follow you. And if they don't trust you, they won't allow you to lead. And then are your actually students succeeding? Are your students currently succeeding? Because if they're not, that might be something to consider. And, while I do this is going to drive me insane. I just feel like I should fix this because it's going to drive me crazy. So while you're here, you get to see that I'm actually in Canva, and I want to fix this now. So while you're here, are your current students succeeding? So you know that I knew that was happening. So I'm going to hit present again. And here's what I would ask you to think about is, think about all of those things. And if you aren't there yet, work on those skills while you're considering being a principal, because it's not just work to be a principal. It should be fun for you. And then principalship is important work. We need more principals right now. We can't find them. We can't find people to lead. So we're asking for teachers to come out of the classroom and take on this fun and really rewarding work. So please subscribe for more tips and turn on the bell. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and share. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and a wonderful year.